Got a question for you this morning. Should a priest be only concerned about his parish? How many say yes? Only his parish. Okay. And how many think a priest should be concerned about the whole community? Okay. You're right. You're right. When I was in the seminary, this question came up. And the answer was a priest is a man of the community, not just of his parish, so that everyone should be his concern. Now, certainly, we live in a community, and there are thousands of people that live in our community. And of course, there is the worldwide community. But the priest has to be concerned about everyone, and then he has to address the issues that pertain to his community, and that includes Catholics and non-Catholics and atheists. It includes the religious, it includes the non-religious, it even includes the politicians and the politics of the area. Why? Because the priest is commissioned to take care of people's souls, everybody's soul, not just Catholic souls. So yeah, am I concerned about what goes on in other Christian churches in our community? Of course. Am I concerned about what goes on in the synagogue? Of course. Am I concerned with what goes on in the various Republican clubs, Democratic clubs? Of course. Why? All of those people have souls. And my job, the job of any priest, is to help someone get to heaven. And we're also concerned what? About the morality of the community. And so people need to be instructed. And that is the job of the priest. He is the man of the community par excellence. What I want to do this morning is to present you with some issues that pertain to us here in Naples, here and now. But of course, the application will be much broader to the worldwide community. I want to talk to you, first of all, about this story of the Good Samaritan. Very important story. It's not as simple as some people might think it is. It's really a little bit more complex, a lot more complex. And then I want to talk to you about inflation and the price of gasoline. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about affordable housing in our area. Moral issues that have to be addressed. Okay. We have this story of the Good Samaritan. And I think most of us, we know that story by heart. And maybe we could even repeat it without reading the gospel from the text, but maybe we just, have a rough outline in our heads. One of the lines that's always quoted in this gospel, and it sometimes garners snickering from people, and the priest passed him by. Say, the priest passed him by. And maybe they're making a statement about this Old Testament priest, but maybe they're also thinking about some of the priests in the church today. You see, they're not all that good. It's a commentary on the priests. Or the Levite. I think the best way I could explain the Levite is maybe a deacon. Maybe a deacon. And you could say, oh, yes, the Levite, that deacon passed him by too. What people fail to realize is this, that those two people, that priest and that Levite, that deacon, they were obeying the laws of ritual purity in order for them to offer sacrifice in the temple. If that person that was on the side of the road were dead and they touched that person, they would become ritually impure. And therefore they couldn't offer sacrifice at the temple. So technically, legally, ritually, they were doing the right thing. Okay? Now, Jesus then talks about this Samaritan. And he talks about the Samaritan is someone who does stop and who does minister to this man and takes care of him. And of course, then at the end we hear, which is the one who extended mercy? And of course, it is the Samaritan. Now, the key to this is that the needs of human beings supersede the needs of the laws of ritual purity. So oftentimes in the past, and sometimes even today, some young woman would come to me and say, I missed Mass on Sunday because my child was sick. Now, was she right to miss Mass? Yeah. Okay, what's your first obligation? To take care of your children. Or someone today might say to me, I had to stay home. My mother is not well. She had COVID. She's weak. I stayed home and I took care of her. You doing the right thing? You darn tootin'. You're doing the right thing. Or if you yourself are sick, I stayed home because I'm sick. Stay home, get better, and don't make anybody else sick. Okay, that's common sense. That's common sense. This Samaritan story is unique because the Jews and the Samaritans did not like each other. They did not like each other. Samaritans are a very interesting group. They still exist today. Only about 800 of them are left in the whole world, and they live up in the northern part of Israel. And what we are pretty sure from DNA is that these Samaritans are mixed. Remember in the Assyrian war against Israel, the Assyrians in 729, they deported a lot of the Jews, brought them to Assyria, and we think what happened is that some of them stayed behind in northern Israel, and they mixed in with the Assyrians. And so the Jews consider the Samaritans to be half-breed, not full Jews. And the Samaritans have, a different form of religion that they practice. They only accept the first 5 books of the Bible, and to this day they still practice animal sacrifice. It's a very interesting group. You could go home and read about them. So the Jews and the Samaritans did not have a very good relationship. They were half-breeds. They were not part of the Jewish race, and they were practicing a different religion. They were unclean. They were dirty. We don't want to be bothered with this type of person. Samaritans felt the same way about the Jews. Samaritan didn't care that the man in the ditch was a Jew. He got out of his Lincoln Continental and he took care of him. And so the message here is that the real human being, the person of the community, takes care of everybody, not just the people that are part of your nationality, people part of your country, people who think the same way you do, but we do have an obligation to everyone, to everyone. That's solid Catholic teaching. It's solid Christian teaching. All right. Now, having said that, we have some issues that are affecting our whole country, but they are affecting our community too. And I have to talk about these issues. They're very, very important issues because, as the expression goes, they're right in front of our nose. So let's talk about them. We have a problem with inflation. Okay? I'm not going to tell you who's causing the inflation. We all know Putin is causing the inflation. All right. Poor Putin, I don't know. He's getting blamed for a lot of things. He's moved into all of our heads in some way. But it's causing problems. It's causing problems. Why? We have people in our community who are suffering because of inflation, especially people who are low-wage earners. They're suffering. Now, every day, all of us come in contact with these people, don't we? You might go to Publix. Those people are not making a fortune in Publix. Might be checkouts, might be stocking the shelves. Every day we can see people who are doing our lawns, roofing, cement work. We see people who are working in restaurants. Some are waiters and waitresses. Some are working in the kitchen. Some are there cleaning. These people are low-wage earners. And they have a problem. You have the price of gasoline, and they're not driving around in Mercedes. A lot of them have old clunkers. Believe me, for the first few years when I was ordained, an old clunker was a gas guzzler. They're not green, believe me. So what happens? They're having a hard time making ends meet. Just think of someone coming in from Immokalee to work a low-wage income job. What do? The price of gasoline has doubled. You take food off the table from the children. Or do some people say, it's not worth it anymore for me even to drive in from Immokalee or from Fort Myers or wherever the case may be. You're saying to yourself, well, what can I do about that? Well, there is something you could do about it, all right? And you have an obligation to do something about it. Most of us, thank God, have enough. Some of us, more than enough. I was in Publix the other day, and I noticed that they have these gift cards hanging as you are getting ready to check out. The food that we can afford, and a lot of people can't afford anymore. Wouldn't it be a wise thing for you to do to say, could I have 4 or 5 or 10 $25 gift cards for food or for gasoline and give it to somebody who's working a low-paying job? Why not? Why not? Maybe you could help somebody put food on the table or fill up a half a tank of gas. See? That's the Good Samaritan. You're not related to that lady that's cleaning in the hospital. You're not related to that man who's stocking the shelves at Publix. But you have a moral obligation to help your neighbor, no matter who he or she is. And believe me, it will make a big difference for them, but it'll also make a big difference for you. How you're going to feel about yourself, putting the gospel into action. Simple enough, you can do it. You don't do it, well, someday you'll have to make your case before God. How's that? All right. Let's talk about affordable housing. This is a tough one. It's a tough one. There are people who are meeting. Naples Affordable Housing Committee is meeting about this issue. What does this mean? It means that housing in our community is very expensive. We live in a very nice area, thank God. And we want to keep a very nice area, I hope. But we depend on other people to make this the wonderful community that it is. We just talked about people working in minimum wage jobs, what we could do to help them. But we have other people in our community who are, in many ways, professionals who cannot afford to live here anymore. I'll tell you what the implications are about this. What are these groups that I'm talking about? I'm going to name some of them. Right? Teachers, I found out the starting salary for teachers in Naples is $48,000 a year. Not a lot these days, not a lot at all. What about nurses at the hospitals? I got a letter the other day, an email from a hospital worker, and said to me, "Father, maybe you can help us. We need you to inform the community about the dire straits that some of our nurses are in." You know what it said? One of our nurses came in today, and she was paying rent for her condo, $2,400 a month. She got a letter from the landlord. It's going up to $4,000. And that's happening. It's not just one case. It's happening. That's certainly what the market is calling for these days, these kinds of prices. And then what about our police, our fire, and our EMS? They can't afford to live here. Now, what are the implications of this? We're going to be a little bit selfish here, too. How do I mean selfish? Okay, number one, teachers. We need teachers in our schools. Community is growing. We have young people. We have to make sure that teachers can afford to live here. Once again, traveling is getting more and more expensive. If you're starting with $48,000 a year, that's not very much money. Sorry to say it, but it's not. Right? What about the nurses? Ladies and gentlemen, believe me, having been at the hospitals so many times over the last few years, they are indispensable. They are indispensable. What a marvelous group of people, both the men and the women. They work hard. If they can't afford to live here, who's going to take care of us? Especially those of you who are senior citizens. Not me, all right? We need them. We need them. What about the police, fire, EMS? You think that they're making a fortune in those jobs? They're not making as much as the first responders do in New York City, I'll tell you that. But if they can't afford to live here, where are they going to be when we need them? They're going to drive in from Fort Myers, Cape Coral? Might be too late, and it usually is too late by the time somebody drives in from there to take care of one of us who decides to have a heart attack or a crime's being perpetrated. All right, what are we going to do? You say, this is a little bit more complex, and it is complex. I got a note from a friend of mine, and he said that Father also, you've been concerned about affordable housing. You know how I am. I put my nose in a lot of things. And he said, but what does affordable mean? So I tried to find a definition, although there are many definitions, right? This is the definition that one man gave me, a very thoughtful man. He said, you can buy the median age in an area. You know what it is, median age for Naples? Median wage in Naples, or median income. Median income, it's $96,000 a year. So the median income is $96,000 a year. Those who do not make the $96,000 a year, these people are people who would fit into a category in need of affordable housing. And what determines that? It should be 30% of the $96,000 a year. And what does that come to? About $2,500 a month for housing. So I think I got the math right. We don't have affordable housing in our area. We do have people working on it, but they're not getting very far. And the politicians need us to tell them, yeah, we want affordable housing for those people who are in need of affordable housing, but for us who need them. Gabish? When you're good to other people, you end up being good to yourself. When you're good to other people, you end up being good to yourself. So, we now have some kind of a number that we want to work with. But how do we do this now? Yeah, you talk to the politicians. Look, there are regulations here in Naples, to the moon. To the moon. Sometimes the regulations have to be relaxed, right? So you tell the politicians, hey, look, the regulations, they were there for a reason, trying to protect the community, but we have to relax some of the regulations so that builders can build affordable housing. There was a meeting, I'm told, a couple of weeks ago, a meeting about some construction company wanted to build affordable housing. And there was yelling and hollering at the meeting. The meeting had to come to an end. People saying, I don't want, the New York housing projects in my backyard. We're not talking about the housing project in New York City, okay? We're talking about affordable housing. When these meetings take place, you should attend those meetings. And people should act in a very civil way at those meetings. You cannot have a democracy, you cannot have a good community unless people act civilly. I don't want that happening in my backyard. I want to brag about Naples. I don't want to be ashamed of some people who are thinking only of themselves and not seeing the broader picture of what I just told you. There's also a lot of environmental regulations. Look, we're all in favor of a nice, clean environment, a healthy environment. We're all, concerned about sea life and air life and, I hope, human life. But sometimes even the environmental restrictions, they have to be reconsidered to say, well, maybe the spotted owl is not as important as having a policeman and a nurse and a teacher helping us to have a good community. So today, first of all, you go to you go to Publix, get some gift cards, you give them out. Just give them out to people who are not making the big bucks, number one. Number two, you contact the politicians. You tell them that you want affordable housing in Naples. I was just reading last week in the paper, Mrs. Pasidomo, Kathleen Pasidomo, she's going to be the Senate president, and she said that's on her agenda. Good. Tell Mrs. Pasidomo that you support her and that you support any politician or state representatives, that they should know that you support affordable housing in our area. The third thing is get involved in the community. You get involved. And when you get over to those community meetings, you tell them what I said. And I mean that. Because it's not only the Christian thing to do, it's the way good human beings behave and how we set up a good, wholesome, healthy community. God love you.